Today, we're going to talk about something that many doctors aren't talking about.
Changing your food can get rid of ADHD like symptoms.
Absolutely.
It is today's modern food industry that created these various health conditions and problems that we are dealing with. And changing what we eat can get rid of most of these. You worked at the hospital for a long time.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about what your observation was on the patients that you've seen hospitalized?
So, working in ultrasound, I've dealt with patients from obviously pregnancies, but newborn babies in the neonatal intensive care, all the way up to patients up to 100 in age 3. And if I had to take it to the two most common things or reasons why someone was hospitalized, of course, aside from a appendicitis, or even that can do with food,
Right.
but like car accidents and other things in that nature. The two most important things, the two most critical things, would be diet and or lifestyle.
That's
In
huge.
my estimation, it was at least 80% of the patients that I dealt with were there due to one or both of what I just mentioned, diet and or lifestyle. So that has such a huge role. And it's interesting because whenever I would work in a hospital, and even our own personal doctors, right?
Right.
I've never heard food mentioned that much as far as it pertains to getting you healthier or healing from a specific ailment or whatnot.
Right.
It's always a prescription medication.
Yeah. If they mentioned food, it was brief. It was
Really brief.
more about the amount, the calories that you're ingesting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I remember bringing our boys to the pediatrician, and those of you who have kids, I don't know, I still don't understand the research behind this, but over and over again, they asked, what milk are we giving our kids? And I remember saying that I'm giving organic milk to our
Mm-hmm.
children. And she said, you don't have to waste your money
Yeah.
on the organic milk, just give them skim milk.
Couldn't disagree with her more now.
So it's quite interesting. But today we're actually going to be talking about the connection of food to ADHD like symptoms.
Right.
And for the sake of today's discussion, we are going to be talking about cereal, using it as an example. And
a common staple.
Right, a
It was
common
for us.
staple. It is the most heavily advertised breakfast item. Most kids, if not all, eat this for breakfast every single morning. But I also know adults do the same thing.
It's quick, it's convenient, right?
Right. So if you or your children have ADHD like symptoms, please stop feeding them Fruit Loops, Trix, Lucky Charms, Captain Crunch. Am I missing
Pebbles,
anything?
like whatever. Yeah.
Fruity Pebbles,
Yeah,
right?
Fruity Pebbles, that's it.
All of those cereals and other food items are loaded with so many unhealthy ingredients, from modified cornstarch to high fructose
corn
syrups to
hydrogenated
oils, and but most importantly, dyes.
Yeah.
If you were to turn and look at the labels of most items that we feed our children or that are advertised for kids, you will notice that everything, even the things that are white in color, like marshmallows, they still have dyes.
I think it was blue dye or something.
Blue
like
dye,
that.
blue one, yes, inside of them. So why are we mentioning dyes?
So the dyes are terrible. And the one I'm going to single, just for the sake of time, I'm going to single out one specific dye in particular, and that's red dye number 40.
So when you say dyes are terrible, they are causing inflammation.
That's
correctly?
One of the many things, yes.
So when you feed your child cereal, you're actually allowing their brain
it's linked
to swell.
It's linked to brain inflammation. It's linked to gut inflammation, IBS symptoms, irritable bowel syndrome. so many things. It's just it's bad on so many
But
levels.
in this case, you're feeding the ADHD like symptoms
Hmm.
with these dyes.
Yeah. So
You
doc
mentioned red 40.
red 40
Okay.
specifically. So red 40 specifically, it's about 6 million pounds per year
Wow.
is being used in the U.S.
Wow.
Yeah, that's on average.
That's
It's
gross.
an estimated 6 million pounds per
And where
year.
does it come from?
So it's a petroleum-based substance, so it's not real. They have alternatives. They have natural alternatives. There's nothing natural about that. That's all synthetic. It's a chemical um, substance. But the reason why they use that is because it's more consistent in color and visually appealing. However, it's horrible for you. They have natural alternatives, but because it's a natural alternative, it may differentiate in color,
Right.
which is supposed to, right?
Right.
But they care more about the look. And I believe at the end of the day, it's also way cheaper.
For sure. If you look at Fruit Loops and other cereals, for
Mm-hmm.
example, if you look at the ingredients for the Canadian market or the European market, you will find beets for the red instead of red
Yes.
40, and they have other
Annatto
natural, yes,
color. Yeah.
annatto. So if you look at the color of the Fruit Loops in those in Europe and in Canada, it's
They're
that
different.
pale red.
Yeah,
You
they're
know,
different.
it's not
And they're
as
not consistent.
bright
Mm-hmm.
as it
But
is
they're
here
also
in
not
the
as
US.
toxic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For
I was
sure.
surprised when I went to Europe the first time in 2006 when you
Yeah.
have even the orange soda
Yeah.
was tasted nothing like the Sunkist here or
Yeah.
Fanta.
Fanta.
Fanta,
It's
yeah.
Fanta.
So it's
Yeah.
the same company.
Yeah.
However, it tasted way better. It's still not healthy, but it still tasted way better there and had a whole different look. And it was just like a whole other different drink
Yep.
compared to here.
Yeah.
But anyway, aside from that, so I ran across an interesting some interesting material from Dr. Daniel Amen. He's a brain health specialist.
Yep.
So I believe he's a psychologist, so mental health, but is also brain health specialist. And so I found some stuff out on his website, and it stated that it's linked, specifically Red 40 is linked to ADHD, immune issues. It's linked to many physical and other mental issues. So it's just where do I even begin? There's like so much that it's linked to. Um, First of all, I would like to also mention the increased use of food dyes has since 1955 we use on average 5 times more
Wow.
food dyes.
It's literally
So is it a little
everywhere. It's in
far-fetched?
everything.
Is it a little far-fetched to think that when we're increasing these synthetic additives and we're also getting these modern, should I call them diseases and ailments, that there's no correlation in between them?
You don't think it goes hand in hand
Right?
with that? That's just an observation, but you can think about it for yourselves and come up to your own conclusion.
Right.
But
So, and it's not only found, it's found in foods, but not only red foods. That's struck me
yes,
as a
yes,
surprise.
that's weird.
So it's also found in chocolate pudding, for example, chocolate instant pudding, because it has so little chocolate, it would actually come up to be a more green substance if they didn't add the red.
Wow.
So it's just like it's fake food.
Yeah, I was shocked when I did. You can just Google what foods or Google your kids' foods that or your foods that you're eating, and then just look at the ingredients and see how many of the foods that you're eating actually have these dyes inside them, and just think about how they're actually connected to the way you or your child behaves. Like, for example, when I worked as a hygienist, I had
Mm-hmm.
this family that the kids were allergic to red dye. Why did I have to know
That's
this?
what the chart
Well,
said, right?
because
Yeah.
the polishing paste that we use always has red dye, no matter what flavor. Vanilla has red dye, mint has red dye, everything has red dye. So what was interesting about this family is that now the kids grew up and they're adults, and the daughter was in, and she goes, "You know what?" I said, "I don't have the non-dyed Profi paste. Can I polish with toothpaste? Or I'm sorry, it didn't come in." And then she goes, "You know what?" And she started laughing. She's 26, I believe. And she goes, "I'm not allergic to that. My mom
Mm-hmm.
said that because she didn't want us to have that because we would act a little
a certain
wacky,
way.
right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that the mom noticed that so long ago and took an initiative and said, you know what, my kids are allergic, because she didn't want them to have that.
So it's interesting you said that. So especially in larger quantities and certain kids, it actually triggers something in them to where they become more aggressive and outbursts.
Right.
So on this on the site that I also looked at on his website, Doc Gaiman's website, he it was stated that there was a 15-year-old child, and mom or dad or parents or whatever noticed that whenever he drank like a bright red drink or ingested something that was bright red in color, he'd become more aggressive, just outbursts, maybe throw some things around. So she took him to one of his clinics, and right there he does SPECT. So it's just like a brain scan, right?
Yeah.
That shows the brain activity as well as blood flow. So then they did it prior to introducing him to Red 40. And once Red 40 was introduced, like certain parts of his brain lit up.
Wow.
So her suspicion was confirmed that
Wow.
it was a
Wow.
direct correlation with that.
So if you are a parent that notices a certain behavioral change in a child after they eat something, try to pay attention what food that is. And if it's multiple things,
Yeah.
try to figure out the ingredients that are in found in both,
Yeah.
because don't think it's crazy.
Yeah.
Because the mom, you kind of, your child,
your children,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we have acquaintances, right? And recently they were saying their child who has been diagnosed with ADHD
Mm-hmm.
Noticed that every time he eats something,
the child himself
the child himself, who is 10,
mm-hmm.
noticed that he does not feel good. This is what he said.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel good when I eat something with red. He was at a birthday party. He had cupcakes with some red icing on top, and he said, so the child himself, does not eat the red.
So it's interesting you said that
cakes.
also, because many times, especially when our kids are a lot younger and we didn't know any better, and we give them junk food, right?
Yeah.
Candies
Yeah.
as a
Oh,
treat,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of times when you think that it's like a sugar rush that initiates like a wild behavior, just jumping, fidgety or whatnot, many times it's actually the dyes
Mhm.
inside the candy.
Yeah.
Research now shows that many times it's the dyes inside the candy that gives off these, I guess it's a brain reaction.
Behavioral,
So
yes.
it's also linked to what Doc Heyman said, mind storm. So it actually interferes with the electricity in your brain. So aside from messing with the electricity in the brain and the functions, it also gets into thoughts.
Wow.
You can have more suicidal thoughts. You can have panic attacks, outbursts, and that kind of thing. Now, thank goodness with the science that we have now, we can actually see this link. So that Red 40 specifically is just terrible stuff. I would recommend, huge. If you're not sure for yourself or for your children, try what's called an elimination diet. So take out any foods, be vigilant, look at each product that you have. Don't give them anything or take anything that has any food colorings, food dyes, any unnatural substances like that. You could even take it to another extent if you wanted to cut out gluten, cut out wheat, cut out dairy products.
Because most cereals, I mean, the kids, yeah. Right? We're eating cereal with milk.
So if you do it for about a month, cut all that out for about a month. You can even just Google some things, some anti-inflammatory foods. Cut it out for about a month. And see, is what we did. That worked for us. Yeah. And then if you wanted to, doctors recommend.
So I will say for us, we don't. So we have noticed, we have changed so many things throughout the last 10 years with our food. So whatever we
talk about also, in addition to the research we're reading, this is stuff we went through.
So we went through all of this, yes, and we applied this. So our kids, if you've seen them 10 years ago and now, they were definitely misbehaved children at some point, but it wasn't them, it was what they were eating. So as we started changing these things little by little, we've noticed significant changes in their behavior. At first we thought it was sugar. Then, like you said, when we started figuring out these dyes and started looking at things, and other items, as we started eliminating all of this, their behavior was better and better. Their concentration, their grades in school, everything that they were doing was way better. But when we talk about dairy, I know there's a lot of research out there and things about dairy. There is a thing, just because I'm not from here, I'm from Europe. I don't think all dairy is bad. I grew up on a farm. My grandparents had a farm. It was pasture raised, grass fed, all organic in a small town. And I never met anyone with any kind of behavioral problems growing up. And we grew up on this milk. But however, the milk was not pasteurized or ultra pasteurized. It wasn't skim. It wasn't any of that. We had yogurt too, or the kefir, right? It's loaded with probiotics. It is so good
So good for your gut,
throughout kindergarten and elementary school. As a matter of fact, they gave us this as a snack. I had a yogurt cup you would open and drink, and it was really good for us kids.
Not a Pop-Tart.
Not a Pop-Tart. So we have dairy products in our house, and we eat dairy and stuff, but it is the regenerative farm, and it's definitely not hurting anyone's stomach. Or
a side note, what also improved with us and with our children was seasonal allergies.
Yes.
We'd go to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician said, well, this is how it is. Your kids are going to have to go to Costco. I recommend you go to Costco, get that big or that double huge allergic medications for kids. Every year, twice a year, we did it, right?
Yeah.
Once we changed their diet, after we got it almost perfect.
Yeah.
We all of a sudden started noticing that we don't have to buy that medication, the over-the-counter allergy meds anymore.
They're not getting sick. Yeah. There's no allergies. There's no none of them ever had an ear infection, which is
uncommon. Is what we
uncommon. They don't have respiratory. Their immune system is completely different, and so is ours, and it's just pretty amazing. So yeah, definitely.
Foods have a lot to do with it, as you mentioned in the video prior to the sleep, with the symptoms of the ADHD symptoms. Same thing with food, as I mentioned. Just a few of these things of how it's linked to outbursts, and it's linked to all these different things. It's
well, a lot of these things are banned in other countries.
Yes,
a lot of these food dyes.
I think Red 40. I believe Red 40 is banned through most of Europe, either all of Australia, part of Australia.
Canada, all of these countries are doing something about it. But not only that, the other ones, because I remember Blue One, I was reading a study from England, and it's noted that it does, like the symptoms of ingesting food with Blue One dye is head banging, uncontrollable crying from a child. Those are not normal behaviors.
So here's another thing I remembered. There was a child who was on ADHD medications, prescription medications.
Okay.
And when they took them off of any types of food, strict, no Red 40 foods, but you also got to be careful. You can find it, as you mentioned earlier, in toothpaste, mouthwashes, deodorants, that kind of thing, for whatever reason. But they took the child off of that. They did so well that he was off
medications,
ADHD medications.
Wow. Just by getting off Red 40.
Yeah. So
never mind everything else that you can change.
So we're not saying that it's linked to every ADHD case, but it's a crucial aspect, we believe.
Yes. You have to question the diagnosis.
Yeah.
Do not easily accept that your child has ADHD. It's extremely rare that they do. Question the diagnosis. Try to implement these changes. Start with sleep. We talked about sleep in our last episode. Remove these dyes, especially Red 40, but Blue One, Yellow 6. Remove these dyes. Gluten, you mentioned, it's big. Remove gluten and switch dairy or have no dairy, whatever choice.
So go see your doctor for sure. That's what we would do. Go see our doctor.
But question
follow whatever they recommend, but also look at some natural remedies, natural things. So here's a quick example. Has nothing to do with ADHD, but when I worked at the hospital, we would drain alcoholic patients. Many of the patients were alcoholic, should I say, with end-stage liver disease. So they would gain fluid in their belly, but I'll save save you time from what that exactly all that process is. But we would drain a patient. So this one particular patient followed the instructions of the doctors, and we would drain him weekly, like liters and liters and liters every week of fluid from his belly. And then I was talking with him, and some other people were talking with him about any dietary changes. So he got serious about his diet. So here he is, end stage liver disease. He didn't change his medication. He followed whatever the liver doctor mentioned. But he did so well, and he changed his bodily, um, his condition, to where he implemented strict dietary changes. After, oh gosh, I don't know how many months, he ended up not even coming in to get drained anymore because his
Wow.
liver actually
Regenerated.
at least to the point of, I'm not saying it was healed completely, I'm not sure,
Right.
but he just ended up not coming anymore because he didn't make that fluid buildup anymore. So follow, if you're working with the doctor, of course, we're not saying don't go see a doctor, but question the diagnosis.
Yes. Yes.
Question it.
Don't
Look
be
at the
so
sleep.
quick
Look at the food,
to
especially
allow
the food.
your child to be on medications. It's hard if you're a parent and your child has ADHD like symptoms and they're misbehaving. It is hard. It's hard on you. It's hard on your marriage. It's hard on the whole family. Question it. Do anything and everything that's in your power to try to fix it. Because these medications can lead to your child being on them for the rest of their lives, can lead to dependency, and definitely it does shrink and change the shape of the brain.
Yeah.
We
So
have some links that
unless
we
the
are
child really
including.
needs to be on it, it's you want to do everything you can, right, in your
Right.
power to
Right.
prevent that or get him off of it if you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ideally.
For sure. So we hope that this helps you guys and blesses you guys. This is information that we have collected from some articles that we have included the links to. If you guys have any questions, you guys can email us or ask us, comment below.
Yep.
And we will see you guys on the next episode of Healthy Family Talks.